This is Venice. It's the city where I was raised and have lived for over 35 years. But there's a significant problem facing Venice: overtourism. Over 5.7 million tourists travelled to Venice last year. That is 3 times more tourists than residents on average per day. Overtourism can add to high housing costs, infrastructure strain, and the loss of local residents and culture. I've seen tourism transform my city, and I'm going to find out what Venice is at risk of losing and meet 3 local businesses who are keeping Venice alive. But first, I'm headed to the Dorso Duro neighbourhood, where you can still buy produce from a boat like back in the old days. The city of Venice is made up of over 120 small islands with at least 170 canals connected by over 400 bridges, and that means that life here is a bit different from other places. I'm meeting Matteo Secchi, a lifelong Venetian activist at Osteria El Squero, for an espresso.
2 coffee, please. So we lose 20 inhabitants per week. We are not a city anymore, we are like a small village. Venice was one of the biggest cities of Europe in the Middle Age. After Paris and Naples, Venice was the most populated. The city is changed because there's less Venetians every day and more tourists. The balance is different.
What are your favourite things about Venice?
No cars and our simple life. We drink, we eat something, and we talk.
The restaurant overlooks Squero di San Trovaso, a boatyard for gondolas. Only a handful of squeri are left in Venice.
We like every kind of culture, but we don't want to lose our culture. And the Squero is part of our culture. This is one of the last one of the city.
What happens at the Squero?
They build the gondolas, and the gondola is a symbol of Venice. The tourists, if they love Venice, they have to help us protect Venice. The invitation to the tourists is go behind the postcard and get lost in the city, because there's a lot of things you can discover and love it.
A maestro, I would say, is like a conductor of an orchestra. My father says a jazz band because they improvise more.
Ellen and Margherita Micheluzzi are 2 sisters who left Venice but returned to keep their father's glassblowing legacy alive. But the Venetian glassblower is a species in extinction.
In reality, it's always a team. It's the maestro and 2 assistants. They dance around the blowing pipe and glass, and they switch positions. We're glass designers, and we work with artisans in Murano. We work in a furnace with a group of artisans, and they are the real makers of glass. And our father has been working like this also since 25 years. But there are few artisans compared to the number of the ones that are retiring. The cost of gas, the fact that it's a very labor-intensive job and like it's not being passed on as it was before from father to son. It's a world that is shrinking, but there is a lot of attention and consciousness. So there is a way to preserve it.
Keep it alive.
To keep it alive. Tourists are really curious and they ask us a lot about the making of glass. Many people say there's like just a typical touristic little souvenirs, but there's not much artistic glass. So we like to stand out and show that you can do in Murano things that are not what you would expect.
How can you tell real hand-blown glass from Murano versus many of the versions out there?
On glassware, for example, you can tell from this little thing here, which is the blowpipe. The term that they use in Murano, it's opened by hand.
See, that's so interesting because I think if you didn't know, you might think that was a defect.
Another thing that you can see, it's when you don't have like a cut edge.
It's smooth but a little bit uneven.
See it better here.
Yeah.
The signature.
The name and the date.
The date.
Wow. Because each piece is unique.
We have to learn still, like it's 5 years that we started, so we hope that we will be able to carry on doing it.
Up the street, Sara Maestrelli runs a hotel committed to keeping Venetian craftsmanship alive. Sara, tell me a bit about the philosophy behind the design.
We started thinking about the history of Venice and the fact that often a tourist will come to Venice, spend one night, and kind of leave with a sensation that Venice is an amusement park stuck in the 17th century, and that's just not true about Venice. And so we really wanted to celebrate Venice, even though we're a small hotel, in all of its eras. And what came out is kind of this eclectic mix of time periods. For example, this lady next to the Fenice Theatre makes these adorable keychains. We ended up doing a collaboration and doing custom keychains for Violino.
Oh, I love that.
Pretty, yeah. Want to go see your room?
I would love to.
This is probably the room I love the most. The most special thing for a Venetian is to hop on an altana and have a privileged view of the city, right? The altane, which are the wooden terraces that Venetians built on their rooftops. I feel this room is like a little altana that you can sleep in and have this 360-degree view almost of the rooftops.
You couldn't be anywhere else in the world. I really couldn't be.
Venice is a city that deserves to be seen and loved and admired, but it also deserves time. It's very often lived as a touch-and-go city, so a lot of the tourists that come to Venice think just coming, staying for a day, kind of checking that off the list, but that is no way of really getting in touch with the true Venice and the magic of Venice. What is important for the city, but also for the traveler that is visiting the city, is to dedicate it some time.
The city of Venice, with its flood of crowds, is perched precariously on the Venetian lagoon, where the looming threat of actual floods has been staved off by a seawall called Mose. Venice has one of the world's most cutting-edge flood technologies. That took $5 billion and almost 20 years to build. A network of 78 gates located at the inlets of the Venetian lagoon rise from the seabed when an extremely high tide is predicted. Experts estimated that the Mose floodwalls would be raised about 5 times a year, but in the past 2 years the walls have already been raised 49 times. I'm meeting Matteo Bisol, the winemaker at Venice Vineyards on the island of Mazzorbo, where they are making wine from an ancient flood-resistant vine.
So welcome to Venice.
Thank you. What a treat to be here.
This is a very special vineyard. We are in the middle of the lagoon of Venice. We are just half an hour from the city, but actually in the past, from here to Venice, it used to be 3-hour rowing. So the culture of these islands is very different from the culture of Venice itself.
It's a different world,
yes.
No?
Do you know that also in St. Mark's Square, in the year 1100, there was a vineyard?
No way.
Yeah. The history of Venice started in 2001, when my father was visiting the island of Torcello, and he noticed that inside a private garden there were a few vines. So we discovered that Dorona, this grape variety with a unique DNA that was almost disappeared. So we took the cuttings and we were able to replant this vineyard in 2006. We are used to think that the vines need to go deep in the soil. But the vine is very smart. So in this case, the roots are spreading very horizontally and will live in the first part of the surface of the soil.
So it's very shallow. The roots are very shallow.
Yes. This is the type of soil that we have at Venice. Look. So the plants are actually digging...
in amongst shells.
Yes. These are all shells of oysters, all this.
And yet the grapes survive.
Yes, because they adapted themselves through the centuries to survive exactly in this environment, and this is actually what makes the terroir and then the wine of Venice so special.
Amazing.
So now it's time to go and taste this wine.
Fantastic. Music to my ears.
So these are the cicchetti from our Osteria Contemporanea, which is the bistro we have here at Venice. And it's a reinterpretation of the traditional cicchetti of Venice that are smaller bites that usually you pair with the wine, because we don't pair wine with the food, we pair food with wine. This is a good example. This is the largemouth bass. It's similar to sea bass. We call it boccalone. It's an invasive species of the lagoon of Venice. 2 years ago, we decided to focus only on this invasive species because we want people to learn to eat what is actually threatening.
I'm also very excited to try the wine.
Yes. This is the Venusa. Cheers.
Right. It's very interesting.
It's very different from anything else. It's very elegant. It has a very unique character because actually this is a very unique vineyard. Have you ever seen a vineyard like that?
No.
This is the effect of a salt which is in the soil, which is creating this difference.
Can you tell me about the bottle? Because it's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen.
This is a gold leaf that is made in Venice by the family Berta Battiloro, that they are hand beating the gold leaf. And then in Murano is actually baked into the glass by another handcrafter family.
That Michelozzi glass they engrave in the same way.
This is another tradition of Venice.
So what's more precious, the bottle or the wine?
For me, always the wine.
Always
the wine.
And I hear visitors to the vineyard can now actually stay on the island of Murano.
Casa Murano. It's a different model, which is really interesting for Italy, small villages. There's no big buildings, there are all small houses. We have 13 rooms, so in 5 different houses around the village. So we don't want the tourists to be all in the same building with the tourists, but we want to be more of a mix and integrated in the local environment of Murano. There is a certain type of tourism that is actually helping Venice to keep its tradition alive. That is thanks to tourists that are still using the gondola that exists the last square in Venice. The tradition of building the gondola is still alive. And the same with our wines, with the gold beaters, with the Murano handcrafters. I really think that people that are choosing a certain type of Venice and a certain type of tourism are actually keeping this city alive.